Well, this morning we continue our special series examining the government's first year in office, and we now turn to the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, where the focus over the past 12 months has been on ensuring that diplomacy delivers real, tangible benefits for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So from strengthening key international partnerships to securing grant funding, expanding visa-free travel, and positioning the country for greater investment and economic opportunity, there has been a clear shift toward a results-driven foreign policy. We've also seen increased engagement on the global stage, deeper collaboration within CARICOM, and a renewed effort to support nationals at home and abroad. Well, joining us now is the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Honourable Sean Sobers, as we take a closer look at the progress made so far and what lies ahead. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Vanilla. Thank
And
you.
allow me to also say a happy wedding anniversary to you and your lovely wife.
Thank you. It has been 10 years of perfect marital bliss, and I also would want to wish my wife a happy anniversary this morning.
Well, it's a very special day, and we're glad that you can spend it, starting it with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
So, Minister, you've described your approach as a Trinidad and Tobago First approach. How has that shaped your ministry's international engagement over the past year?
I think that approach or that mandate was entrusted to me by the Honourable Prime Minister. For some time, or for a very long time, we've seen Trinidad and Tobago take a back seat in terms of our international engagements, in terms of our outreach with respect to different partners across the globe. And in order for us to advance as a people, we need to seek new partnerships and forge new relationships with different persons throughout the globe. We've seen countries that just as small as we are, with a population very similar to our own, in terms of their advancement, it far outweighs Trinidad and Tobago's. And their diplomatic policy, the way in which they engage globally to learn from other countries similarly disposed or even larger than them, has been extremely robust. And that is what the Prime Minister wanted from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and that's how we've begun to transform the ministry.
Well, speaking about partnerships in other countries, another major milestone was the state visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yes.
So can you tell us how significant was that visit in strengthening bilateral relations?
Yeah. Well, we've had bilateral relations with India for quite some time. However, we hadn't had the type of engagement, I would want to say, with India in the way in which we really wanted to over the last couple of years. And as soon as Prime Minister Prasad Visesa became the country's Prime Minister, we received that call from the Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, from India, indicating that Prime Minister Modi wanted to visit. He was on a trip across to South America and for the BRICS summit, and he said it would have been apt for him to definitely stop in Trinidad, give his salutations not only to the Trinbagonian people, to the Prime Minister, but also to the Indian diaspora that lives in Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the key milestones of that visit was both leaders' emphasis on South-South cooperation. So usually countries, less developed countries, which are in the southern part of the hemisphere, we tend to always try to rely on relationships being generated with larger countries in the northern part of the hemisphere. But within the last decade and a half, there's been this sporadic growth of relationships between countries within the south, lesser developed countries that have learned from each other and have grown. And with increasing cooperation with those southern countries, there's been extreme tangible benefits met across the entire southern hemisphere. And that was one of the reasons for his visit, apart from the many gifts that he brought to Trinidad and Tobago, which we are very grateful for.
Yes. Can you tell us about the Indian Grant Assistance Program?
Right, so there are several programs that that India would have given to Trinidad and Tobago based upon that visit. Some of them have to do with sports, some of them have to do with the LIM camp, which is fully operational. I think to date we've given out more than 700 or 800 persons. They've been fitted with limbs, various types of limbs. The actual facility would be the second or third facility outside of India that would be placed now in Trinidad and Tobago in Penal. So that will be a continuing engagement in terms of assisting persons who lose limbs for through varying incidents. We also had a cooperation with respect to an agro-processing plant because we appreciate that our food export bill is extremely high. And we want to encourage farmers through the Ministry of Agriculture. Minister Atiram is doing a fantastic job to get them to grow more so that we could process those things and have them exported so they have longer shelf lives. They could take the transit of the exportation and whatnot. Additionally, there has been medical cooperation, apart from the limbs, with respect to sea ambulances, hemodialysis machines, and also laptops, because India is extremely big on education, and that is something that the Prime Minister holds very key to her heart as well, too.
Yeah. So I want to move away now to the United States. So that's another area where we continue to have relations as well. Now, Trinidad and Tobago has continued to strengthen our military partnership with the U.S. So what are the key areas of cooperation under this arrangement?
So definitely our engagement with the U.S. has expanded, I think, 1,000-fold since coming into office. Again, we've always had a very good relationship with the United States, but I would want to say we have a much better relationship with them now. Our Prime Minister and the White House, they share a very, very close relationship, and we work extremely closely with the U.S. Embassy here, with the Secretary of State, and what it has allowed us to do is expand, apart from military to military cooperation. A key focus would have been on energy and the introduction of a lot of U.S. investors into Trinidad and Tobago, which was not something that was prominent before. They always saw the region as being tacitly involved. Now we are fervently engaged with the U.S., and based upon that, it was what I think prompted, especially our Prime Minister's clarion call to stamp out narco-terrorism in the southern part of the hemisphere, in the southern part of the Caribbean, that the U.S. got more actively engaged with Trinidad and Tobago. And that, I think, semi-climax with respect to the Shield of the Americas, which we are now part of.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Shield, you were a part of the Shield Summit in Florida alongside the Honourable Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet. So what were the key moments in that meeting for you, and how do they all benefit Trinidad and Tobago, and also what did you personally take away from that?
I think for many persons around the world, and I think it is in fact so, all cabinets, especially the U.S. cabinet, there's a certain degree of distance because of the significant amount of layers that exist within any sector of cabinet in the U.S. So take, for example, the Secretary of State. They employ thousands of persons. There are several different persons, layers and tiers of persons and organizations between a normal individual and the actual Secretary of State. And the same exists with the Secretary of Energy, or the Secretary of Commerce, or the Treasury Secretary, or the United States Trade Representative. And what we were allowed to do at the Shield of the Americas was all of those tiers, all of those different sectors that separate the actual person representing that particular cabinet office were removed, and you had a one-on-one engagement, which is something I think has never occurred before. So, I mean, I don't want to publicly say, but I will publicly say, coming out of that meeting, we have actual personal telephone relationships now, direct telephone relationships now with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Energy, which is extremely important, Secretary Wright, Secretary Rubio, many staffers in the White House, Mr. Stephen Miller. So the connection now between Trinidad and Tobago, this administration, and literally nearly every single person within the White House is physically there. I mean, we will not use it sporadically, but I have had cause to call and actually speak to Secretary Wright within the last coming days. I've had cause and I've actually spoken to Under Secretary of State Chris Landau. We've had cause to speak to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And there's no more bureaucracy. I mean, we still liaise with the U.S. Embassy because the Charge and her team down here are fantastic and we appreciate them, we love them. But if we do need to actually literally pick up the phone and call the Secretary of State, it is literally just a phone call away now.
All right, thank you for that, Minister Sobers. We take a short break, and when we come back, we continue our conversation with the Honourable Sean Sobers, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Well, continuing our discussion this morning with Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Honourable Sean Sobers. We switch now, Minister, to the fact that we've been strengthening ties with the United Arab Emirates, and I know that there was a reciprocal investment protection agreement. Can you tell us about that and about the investment for Trinidad and Tobago?
Right. So one of the mandates also given to the ministry, again, in terms of reaching out to different partners was, listen, we don't really have much of a relationship with the Middle East, which is kind of strange, because we have oil and gas sector that dates back over 100 years. We've turned out engineers that work all across the world, especially within the Middle East. We have a large diaspora that exists in the Gulf states, which is Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, the Kingdom of Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. And we've never really had any significant relationship with any of these countries. So one of the first things the Prime Minister indicated is that we need to get in contact with the Middle East and let's see how we could share the knowledge that we have and expertise that we have and with their growth. And so one of the first countries that we were able to have that discussion with was the United Arab Emirates. The Foreign Minister of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Abdullah, is actually the brother of the President of the UAE. And he is an amazing person. He has quite a fantastic team on them. Nora Al-Kabi, we speak all the time as well too. She's amazing. She's the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And on that particular, we visited the UAE on 2 occasions, but in terms of that particular agreement that you spoke about, the UAE is a country that attracted a lot of investment that allowed them to build their country. When people think about the UAE, they think about Dubai. The capital of the UAE is actually Abu Dhabi. That's where all the oil and gas actually takes place. The money comes from. And when we had discussions with them and we went to Dubai and we spoke to Sheikh Maktoum and the other rulers in Dubai, and they gave us their plans, all of it centered around investment. So in order to make Trinidad and Tobago investable for those types of persons who invest in the UAE. We're talking about people from the UK, Spain, France, and even further east. This type of investment treaty, reciprocal investment treaty, to protect the investments when they come to Trinidad and Tobago was important. Nobody wants to pick up $1 billion USD in hard currency and come to Trinidad and Tobago. They invest in a plant, and then tomorrow there's a change in administration, and somebody wakes up and says, listen, you see that plant that you invested $1 billion USD in? I want that plant. And we nationalize it, or we expropriate it, as they say. So this investment protection arrangement allows, apart from that being prelucidly written into the arrangement, it also allows them to have means to commercially arbitrate matters if there are disputes, so that there's dispute resolution mechanisms built into it, which encourages investment protection and the appetite for investment from that side of the world to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to cover, over the past year. So I want to switch now to the United Nations General Assembly. Yes. I know that Trinidad and Tobago has really been active there. What key priorities have you advanced there?
Right. So, I think the most major one is that we are currently vying for a seat at the UNSC, the United Nations Security Council. The UNSC has 5 permanent members, and there are spaces for non-permanent members which rotate every 2 years. Trinidad and Tobago is geared towards being elected as a non-P5 member for the period 2026 to 2028. The elections are in June, I think the 5th or the 6th of June. And I think that will be one of the largest milestones that we would have had at the United Nations within the last 20 plus years. The focus in terms of what we want to bring to the United Nations Security Council, because it is one of the most powerful organs of the United Nations. So sitting there as a non-permanent 5 member, apart from being just part of the room and part of the conversation, you actually have the ability to chair the UNSC at least 2 times within your term. So in going out there to get, apart from the support that we have from GRULAC, which is the Latin America and Caribbean, and the support from CARICOM, we've been going out to touch other partners around the world to ensure that we get their support. And they've been interested in finding out, well, what do you intend to do if you become a non-permanent 5 member? We focus on a mandate that the Prime Minister has given us, which is to focus on what affects Trinidad and Tobago first, and the wider Caribbean and the rest of the world. That being issues related to women, peace and security, the movement of small arms, which is a huge problem that we have in the Southern Caribbean, and also, which is one of the most important ones that has been raised and has been accepted by every single person we've spoken to, is the positive and the negative usage of artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I know that we have had efforts to strengthen intelligence systems, also maritime surveillance and all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that development as it relates to our national and regional security?
Well, as Minister Alexander would like to say, I can't tell you a secret because it will no longer be a secret. Right? But what I can say is that we have partnered with several countries, especially with respect to the U.S., in strengthening our maritime borders. It has not been a secret. What has not been a secret is that our borders have been extremely porous for the last decade, which has allowed for the flow of guns, drugs, human beings, agriculture, animals to come across the border unchecked, unmatched, and it has really been a problem. So strengthening our relationship with the U.S., we've been able to repair several boats that have been down. We have a lot of the larger vessels that are out there now patrolling the borders. We are even strengthening our relationships with Venezuela to get assistance from them to help identify boats that are coming in illegally. And we're in the process now of even furthering those relations to deport persons who are illegally here and have not followed the correct process to get to Trinidad and Tobago. We are not a country that is big on nepotism at all, or on xenophobia, I should say. But what we are on is that you need to come here legally, and we will afford you all the rights and privileges just like any other citizen that is within Trinidad and Tobago.
So another hot topic these days is, and this is on another side of the conversation. It's Sargassum, and I believe there's a project that's about to be undertaken, and it's exploring innovative economic initiatives like converting the Sargassum into high value products. Would you be able to tell us about that project?
Right. So there are several projects spanning several ministries with respect to Sargassum. As you know, it's something that is plaguing the Caribbean, especially in and around June, July. You have a lot of sargassum seaweed coming, and the sargassum becomes an extreme problem because it is on the beach and the coastline. And then when it begins to rot, it has a foul stench. And I mean, a lot of the hotel and hoteliers, they complain because their visitors, they would complain about it and whatnot. So many countries around the world who are also similarly faced with such a problem, they found a way to transform the sargassum seaweed into material that can be utilized, especially for skincare and cosmetic products and whatnot. And that's a partnership that is taking place with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Planning, and the Ministry of Rural and Local Development, with assistance from the United Nations, the UNDP, the country of Japan as well. We have some of our Scandinavian partners that are assisting us with that as well too. So really and truly what has to happen is that we need to formulate a mechanism where we could collect the sargassum at water before it hits the beach, and then we would be able to filter it properly and transform it into something that can be utilized for cosmetics and other good usages.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. We've had some conversations about that on the show, and it's amazing how you can take something that is proving to be such an issue now and turn that into, just an asset as
Definitely,
well for
yeah.
us. So, Minister, within CARICOM, there's been a focus on regional cooperation and security. So how important now has that collective approach been in helping with things like the transnational crime issue that we have?
Right. So, I mean, we are the lead in CARICOM when it comes to national security and energy. We have had several discussions on the issue. It is no secret that sometimes we are split as a region as to how we think we should deal with some of these issues. I would want to publicly say that there are certain countries that are hinged to the hip as to the approach that Trinidad and Tobago has adopted when it comes to dealing with maritime issues and border security, which would be us, Guyana, Jamaica. Other countries, they have their own approaches, which we appreciate because they're sovereign states, but they are not so affected respectfully in the way in which we are when it comes to narco-terrorism and transnational crime. And we have adopted the approach, at least the three of us, criminals that are motivated by ideology are not as dangerous as criminals that are motivated by profit. And what we're dealing with are criminals that are motivated by profit. The monsters of today that Trinidad and Tobago and the Southern Caribbean have to treat with are far more worse. They are far more sophisticated than the monsters of yesteryear. And so that requires a robust, drastic, serious, and significant response. And that is the manner in which we have adopted to deal with it. Some of it has been kinetic strikes in international waters, which we support through the US, and it has had a significant reduction on crime within Trinidad and Tobago because there's no access to guns, there's little or no access to drugs, there's no human smuggling because persons are not going to put people on boats when they know that there's a possibility that they can be destroyed. And we have had several different iterations of legal support on this matter to ensure that we are within the confines of the law when these things take place. But a dramatic response is required because we are facing some significant issues that no one has ever really thought to treat with in this particular way to yield the results that we have been we've procured thus far. And it has all been based upon the Prime Minister taking a direct approach and walking that line no matter what detractors say. And it has shown tangible success.
Minister, moving further now, how would you describe relations with Venezuela at this time?
Yeah. Our relations with Venezuela continue to get better. I would say almost on a daily basis. Trinidad and Tobago has never broken its diplomatic relations with Venezuela, even during all of the rhetoric, the unfortunate rhetoric that passed between the two countries. But we've never broken diplomatic relations. Our embassy has always remained open. The Venezuelan embassy has always remained open. We've always been extremely friendly to the Venezuelan ambassador, Alvaro, who's a personal friend of mine. And we've always had, they've always treated our diplomats across in Caracas with fervent and due respect. We talk daily as we try to put together the agenda for this diplomatic mission that will be launched soon. But as you would well imagine, there are a number of issues to be discussed. Venezuela is a country with huge potential apart from energy. There's a lot of trade and economics that can take place within Venezuela, and that is where we are together for the benefit of both Trinbagonian people and the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We are both laser focused on to deliver for both countries.
Minister, thank you for those responses. Before we wrap up today, I want to ask you a question, a personal one. How you've gone through this entire year and you've achieved so much, but on a personal level, what are you most proud of over the past year in government?
I am not saying this because the Prime Minister has cleared this up yesterday. So my job is safe as far as I know. So there's no cabinet reshuffle. But I am most proud of the relationship that the Prime Minister has shared with a lot of, if not actually with all of cabinet. She has been extremely hands-on. She's nurtured every single minister and ministry. And she's taken a significant role, direct role, in the way the ministry is developed. For me personally, having someone like that as a mentor in what was originally, in my opinion, really a ministry that would, have some degree of diplomatic tension at some point in time and some sort of difficulties to navigate. I don't think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs ever had this amount of work to do. But the Prime Minister has been there with me every step of the way, and all the achievements that the ministry has successfully procured since coming into office, we tether to her leadership, and I am very, very proud of that as a minister, that I can report on so many different things that we've been successful on. Some of them that, many of them that we have not been able to touch on because of the short period of time that I've been here.
Well, still, nevertheless, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So that was Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Honourable Sean Sobers, as we continue to wish him a very happy wedding anniversary. And we know your wife is probably looking on, and we hope it's a really special day for you both.
I think she's maybe getting my daughter ready for school.
All right, well, a special good morning to her as well. The time now, just about 20 minutes before 8 o'clock. We'll get ready now in a short bit for the link up with our next sister station on the list.